Hello and welcome to day 13 of the 30 Days of Spectre on Friday the 13th, no less. Let's hope it doesn't turn out to be an unlucky day and that everything goes smoothly, because that would be unfortunate. My name is Tom Sears and I'm joined by my good buddy Chris Wright. Say hello, Chris.
Hello.
Now, what are we talking about today?
Well, today, Tom, we are talking... I'd love to try and link it into something scary and horrific like Friday the 13th, but we're not going to do that because we didn't time it, did we? No. So what we're going to talk about is the scene of the Rome car chase between Bond and Mr. Hinx. Oh, yeah, baby. I'm
very excited about this. I think this one is a bit of a divider. I've seen some positive comments. I've seen some negative comments. So it'll be good to have a good old chat about that. Obviously, we've done the Mr. Hinx episode, and we could have talked about, it's tough when a character is in some, more than one kind of set piece scene. So that episode could have been, 2 hours long if we'd have done it all. So we thought Rome car chase, will give that its own little segment. So so there we go. So so let's get stuck in then. So
before we go ahead, I've just got a couple of quick things.
Right,
we put that poll out about voting for your favourite Bond film, your most favourite Bond film. Yes. Well, do you know, I had a sneaky look at how the results were going, and it is very, very interesting.
Is it?
Very interesting. I can admit there are 3 films that seem to be clear by far and away above the others. There are 2... the 2 in 4th and 5th are going pretty tight, close together. And there are 1 or 2 that haven't had any votes whatsoever.
I can imagine.
Now, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to say what those films are, but what I will say is anyone that hasn't voted, if you can, we're basically going to, on our Facebook page and on our Twitter page, there's going to be a link that we're going to put up. We already put it up, but we'll put it up again. And that's basically goes to like a survey. And all you have to do is just click on your favourite Bond film. So this isn't like what you think is the best Bond film. This is what's your favourite. This is the one that you get the most enjoyment, the most fulfilment out of watching. So we've got, I think we're up to about 250, 300, but we can definitely get more than that. So if anyone hasn't voted, the deadline day is this Saturday at 8 PM Greenwich Mean Time. So if you can get your votes in before then, that would be excellent.
Very
and
nice.
Once we've totted it all up, we'll even give you percentages of how all the films have done, and you don't want to miss out. You want to have your say, don't you, Tom?
Absolutely.
You have your say.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So make sure you come to the Facebook page and the Twitter, I should say, and cast your vote, which is a perfect opportunity for me to talk about Facebook and Twitter, because we would love it. We would love it if you would come and join us on those social media platforms. Obviously, to find us on Facebook, you could just put James Bond Radio into the search box and you'll find us. With Twitter, it's at James Bond Radio. You could also come to jamesbondradio.com and join in the discussion in the comments area on the website. There's a lot of chit-chat going on over there lately, which is always a lot of fun. And you can leave us a voicemail on the website too. And if you wouldn't mind subscribing to our YouTube channel, there's lots of wonderful content on there. A lovely little surprise we posted earlier this week, in fact, can be found on the YouTube channel. So make sure you go and do that. Again, just put James Bond Radio into the search box on YouTube and you will find us. And last but not least, if you would mind coming to our iTunes page, just put James Bond Radio into the search on iTunes and you will find us, and leaving us a lovely glowing 5-star review. Because what does it do, Chris?
Well, it helps get our listeners helps get us more listeners and raise up the charts and increases our exposure. I can't remember your line, and I hear it every single time. What is it? What does it do?
It helps us rank higher and attract more listeners.
There we go.
There it is.
That's exactly it. See, that was part of a quiz question, and I didn't get it.
There you go. You've only been half listening all this time.
I know.
How dare you?
I turn off. That's the trouble. So used to it. But I love that smooth transition there. It was almost as if it was meant to be, I stood it up and in you go. So it's good stuff. So just before we go ahead, actually, there is something else I want to talk about, which I briefly mentioned to you the other day. Now, I've spotted something which I think would make for an amazing James Bond film title.
Oh.
Maybe Bond 25, maybe a future Bond title. I'd love it if it's used. Now, I'm about to tell you what it is. When I do, everyone's immediate reaction will be like, what the is that.
Yeah.
But it's. I think it'd be one that would be a grower, and there's a really good reason behind it. Okay,
all right.
So
let's hear it then.
Okay, so the potential title for Bond 25 or A Bond of the Future is Semper Occultus.
Okay.
Okay, now everyone's going, what the hell is that? Okay, so now I know it sounds a bit Harry Potter, but it's not a spell or anything like that. So Semper Occultus. Now I checked this up, and this is the motto of MI6. Obviously, it's in Latin. Now it translates to always secret. So I really like it, man. I know it sounds kind of strange, but you've got that little link, I think, that you mentioned actually to, you know, the world is not enough and using the family motto. Now we've got the MI6 family motto. So we always secret, I think, is great, but I think Semper Occultus gives it an extra bit of class. People will be like, well, what's that? And they can tell them, you know, what's Quantum of Solace? Don't really know. It's something about, you know, he felt a bit bad, you know, no one could really nail it. Semper Occultus, what is it? It's MI6's motto. It's always secret. It is, you know, and it could really fit into the whole secret, you know, what they're on about in terms of the surveillance and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Yeah, because obviously there's the like we said about the world is not enough being the Bond family motto. It's funny thinking about it that hasn't at least been tapped into for at least a chapter title before, being something as sort of prominent as the MI6's kind of motto. You would have thought that would have been something somebody would have tapped into before. How did you stumble across that then? What's the story?
Well, I wasn't looking for a title. I think I was looking for, I think one of the JBR listeners was questioning as to whether M was ahead of MI6 or just ahead of the 00 service. And I had always thought he was the head of MI6. Yeah. I thought basically every M, you know, like I think it was originally, you know, the first Bernard Lee, for instance, was the head of MI6 and the 00s were just a division of MI6. Yeah. That's how I've always seen it.
Yeah, same here.
And so I thought I'd do a little bit of research and basically went through, obviously found out a bit about M, and that is the case. M is like the head of MI6 and the 00s are a part of that. But then I thought, well, I'll look into the whole MI6 background a bit more, and it just caught my eye. Semper Occultus, always secret. I was like, bloody hell, that's brilliant.
Very nice.
Never heard of it before, and I mean, I really think it could be used as a title. I really do. Like,
well, there we go.
It could be used.
Barbara, if you're listening, and we know you do, there's a little hint for Bond 25. Put a little credit to Chris and James Bond Radio. I'd like to get in on the action if you do decide to use it, even though I didn't come up with it. So if you could put my name on there as well, that would be lovely in the credits of Bond 25. Thank you, Barbara. And of course, Michael G, if you're listening, which of course you must be at this point.
And potentially Greg as well for the future.
And Greg, we got to invest in the future. Greg, if you're listening, both of our names in the credits, please. Thank you. All right, lovely.
Excellent. There we go.
All right, nice. Very nice. Good stuff. Now, one thing I've noticed, what doesn't happen in Spectre that happens in all of Daniel Craig's other films, Chris?
That's a good one. Go on, you tell me.
Daniel doesn't rock a cardigan.
He doesn't, does he?
No.
I don't think he does.
Does he rock one in Skyfall? He must rock one in Sky. He definitely does one in Casino and definitely rocks a cardi in Quantum.
He definitely does in Quantum, yeah. Does he do one in Spectre? I don't remember him doing one in Spectre.
That is two what I would consider key Daniel Craigisms that we haven't had this time. We haven't had him strutting across the room with his shirt off, you know, displaying his six-pack, though we get a little bit in the title sequence, obviously, and him not rocking a cardi. So I thought I would make up for that by rocking a bit of knitwear this evening.
I love it.
Yeah, lovely.
Very good.
So yeah, interesting little observation there, I suppose, if you like that sort of thing. So should we talk car chases then, Chris, or what?
Let's do it. Let's talk car chases. Okay, so obviously this is just after the Spectre. What a scene the Spectre meeting is. So it's just after the Spectre meeting. Bond, I love it. I love the fact that he sort of leaps off the balcony, you know, full story onto concrete, goes into his role, gets up, you know, gets in the car. We know it's bulletproof. We've heard from Q, loads of gunfire, and you see all these we call them minions, you know, all these Spectre bodyguards,
the little yellow dudes,
that would be amazing, Steve. And they come out of basically every little corner of the building, don't they? All firing at Bond. He reverses, does a big J turn, thinks great, he's got away, and then background, you just hear this big screech, and you see obviously Hinx, Mr. Hinx, and his Jag about to follow. So it's a cool little start, I think.
Well, I need to be enlightened. What's a J-turn? Is it different to a U-turn?
Yeah. So a J-turn is when you reverse at speed and then pull the handbrake and spin 180 and then carry on.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
So the Man with the Golden Gun is a classic. You know where when Bond's driving down a road in Bangkok and he's sort of reversing and then spins it into a J-turn and carries on.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. So I've learned something today. Very good. Okay. Yes. Very nice. Okay. So yes, I do enjoy this car chase. I must be honest. Now, like we said, it kind of tends to divide some people.
Yeah.
And one of the criticisms I've seen is, well, hold on a minute. Rome is completely unpopulated. They're driving through Rome, one of the the most bustling cities in the world, and there's barely anybody around apart from that one dude in his Fiat, and that's about it. So, what do you think about that sort of angle?
Okay, so to try and be on the positive side of that, I would say that it's obviously super late at night. You're talking maybe 2, 3 in the morning. I've never been to Rome, so I'm sure you look at London 2 and 3 in the morning. It's still busy as hell, isn't it? I'm sure Rome is pretty similar. I suppose you have to take artistic license with some of it. The fact is, at the end of the day, if they had people around, they wouldn't have been able to film and we wouldn't have got that scene.
Yeah.
So if people are going to be anal enough to think, well, hang on a minute, they needed to have more people in it. It's like, well, they wouldn't have been allowed to film, so we wouldn't have been able to see Bond drifting past, the Vatican. It's like,
there's lots of drifting going on, isn't there?
There is. Now, I am a big fan of drifting. Perhaps not when I do it, but it's good. I think so. I do agree with some people in terms of there are certain things I think were missing from this chase, but certain things that I loved. So it's at night, obviously. It looks stunning with the lighting and basically, like we see the cars sort of drifting and they're going over cobblestone, so it's a bit bumpy and lots of stuff is going on. I think initially it's quite interesting because Bond, he's got his car, he doesn't know what's going on. He's got his 4 little triggers, hasn't he? He's got atmosphere, he's got air at the bottom, he's got atmosphere, backfire, or air, and what was the other one again? Exhaust, obviously, exhaust. So he doesn't quite know what's going on, and I like the bit where this is quite good humour. I do like the bit right. He's like, right, come on, Q, flicks the atmosphere, and we hear Frank Sinatra singing, and you're like, what? No, and the fact it was set for 009. Did you like that? Do you think that was quite a cool little thing?
Do you know what? It made me chuckle. It was a chuckler, and I could when that happened, I immediately thought, I bet you there's going to be quite a lot of people that hate that moment. Yeah. But it didn't bother me. I thought, it's one of those things. It's not important. You could take it or leave it. It's just like that kind of little sort of wink of humor, I suppose. Some would argue that it takes away from the seriousness of the chase. Others would be like, yeah, it's a nice little nod to, that's a Roger moment, isn't it? At the end of the day, let's face it, that is a Roger moment through and through. But yeah, the funny thing about this film, man, if you'd have told me what was going to happen in this film, and you'd have said, before we'd seen it, and you'd have said, well, there's a lot of Roger jokes in this, Roger Styley jokes in this film, I'd have been like, oh, hold on a minute, this doesn't seem like it bodes well. But watching it, if I could describe the scene of him ejecting and stuff like that, if I could have described that to myself before I'd seen the film, I think I'd be really worried about it. But for some reason, it just works for me. Yeah. And I had no problem with the 009 music at all.
What about the similar sort of humour with the backfire? So he presses the backfire. I love the way the Aston badge just...
That was lovely,
That was really cool. Yeah. Sloped down, and then the guns came out, and you thought, oh, that's rad. And he even lines it up, doesn't he, to get the lock on, the shooting lock on.
It's like the few optional extras installed from Timmy's day,
that's
isn't it?
It.
Similar
it
sort
is,
of vibe.
Definitely. Yeah. And obviously it locks on, and he presses ammunition not loaded. And I really like that as well. I thought that was great. It's obviously a similar sort of line. And then we know that, okay, basically, you're going to have to use more than just the gadgets this time. And I like the fact that like Hinx is obviously persistent in terms of, you know, he stays on him, and he's always on his sort of, you know, on his ass, so to speak, in terms of the car. But I tell you one thing which I missed out of this chase.
Well,
I missed when people say they didn't think there was any danger. Yeah. I agree with that. Okay, so I like the fact that there is the humour, but I think you could have humour and you can have it serious as well.
Yeah.
So the thing that I missed the most, now this might have been due to financial reasons, because we know that the DB10, there was only 10 of them.
Yeah.
All for the film, but there was only 10 of them. The Jag was a concept car as well, so there probably would have only been like 10 of those, maybe even less. So they didn't have a lot. These cars are super expensive. But what it missed for me was Hinx, you know, like Bond does to the Fiat, like ramming the Fiat. I wanted to see Hinx basically try and knock Bond off the road. Like imagine Hinx trying to swerve the nose of the Jag to the rear end of the Aston. And what I want to see is like a bit of quantum car chase in there. I want to see Hinx sort of knock the rear of the Jag, the Aston spinning into like a track or wall or something, just enough to like get some damage, and Bond to be like, oh fuck. Now
oh fuck.
I'm sure that's exactly how you would have reacted. Now for me, we should have definitely seen something like that.
Yeah.
Now, like a lot, they were obviously going for the humour, and the whole call with Moneypenny. Okay, that was something we hadn't seen before. And again, I didn't think that was bad, but what I'd rather have seen is that call, you know, when Bond sort of says, oh, hold that thought for a minute. That's the point where like Hinx is driving alongside him, and they do a lot of glances to one another in this film, and they're doing that, and that's kind of cool. But I would have much preferred if like Hinx at that point was trying to bash into the Aston, and Bond's like, hold that thought for a minute, and then sort of puts the phone down and outmaneuvers him. What did you think? Do you think that was missing or not?
Well, I would say the obvious thing to compare this scene to would be the opening sequence of Quantum of Solace, wouldn't it? That car chase, you know.
That is rare.
Which I think we should definitely do a direct comparison. I think you could have had a lot more sort of tension in this chase, and that is something that did cross my mind. Is when Hinx pulls alongside, I wanted one of two things to happen.
Right,
One thing I'm very disappointed about, very disappointed, almost ruined the whole film for me, is that Daniel didn't just turn to the side and do the old for your eyes only like nod of the head to him. Do you know what I mean? I would have loved that so much if we'd have done that, you know?
That would have been so good.
Missed opportunity. But he didn't.
I thought that was going to happen as well.
I did.
Yeah.
Also in the plane as well, in the Austria sequence, there was he gives him a little salute, but you know, we need the eyebrow and the nod of the head is what we needed. Now, what was I saying? Yes. So that was the other thing. And there definitely needed to be more sort of jeopardy. You're absolutely right in the sense that Hinx just pulls alongside him and he just looks at him through the window. And it's like, if you've pulled alongside, surely you would be ramming that dude, you know, definitely, especially somebody who's as much of a bulldog as Hinx is, you know. So the fact that he just sort of, and I feel like you could have, for me, when you look at the quantum car chase, that feels like a frantic breakneck car chase, you know, doors getting ripped off and like oncoming traffic and just narrowly missing stuff. And the way that car sort of goes, it falls off the cliff, doesn't it? And it just goes round and round and round. I've never seen a car crash off a cliff like that before, man. It looks that car chase is brilliant. And I feel like it doesn't really quite, but they're going for something different. I don't feel it matches up to that quantum chase. I think that's the superior car chase. But with that said, I feel like they were going for a more humorous angle this time, you know. At the end of the day, you know, in the quantum car chase, Bond doesn't say a word. You know, he's got his machine gun, he's shooting out the window, out the door as he's going along and all that kind of stuff. And then you've got that little bit of humor at the end where it's like, Mr. White, time to get out, and the car's just completely mangled. Whereas with this, it was more of a sort of straightforward car chase. They've got to get some dialogue out with Moneypenny. We've got the whole Pale King connections happening. Obviously, that conversation then gets used later on between Denby and M with the bugging. So yeah, there's more going on in that sense. And obviously there's more humor in the sense that you've got the guy in the Fiat Punto or whatever it is, and he's singing or whatever, and then the airbag sequence. So it is a different angle that they're shooting for this time.
Yeah. That's a good point. There's a couple of things there. I guess firstly, do you think it would have worked if they had added the sort of smashing the cars and like a few, like Bond getting sort of having to drive against a wall as Hinx is like slamming against a wall?
Yeah.
Do you think if they had instances of that along with the humour, along with the like, there was a bit where both cars sort of drop down that sort of massive step bit, don't they?
Yeah.
And the Aston sort of crashes through the roof of the parked car, and then Hinx follows him, the Jag follows him. So there's a bit of sort of action and stuff going on there. Now, do you think it would have worked if there was more of that, if there was more contact, if there was more smashing, but there was also the humour, or do you think it should have just stayed with a sort of lighter tone? I guess?
I think you could have, if you're going for a lighter tone thing, and of course, when you look at a scene in any movie, you've got to look at what that scene does. And a lot of complaints about this film are things like, well, where does he get the plane from? Or, hold on a minute, he's got his goggles on and he's got his gloves and he's fully suited and booted within the space of a few seconds. And it's like, well, we didn't really need to, like, there's no point in showing Bond quickly picking up his glasses and putting his gloves on. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't do anything for the story whatsoever. You see him come bombing out the front of the clinic and it's like he's already booted and suited with his goggles on. So like, you just assume he's just grabbed him on the way out. You know, we don't need to see that, for example. So there is that kind of thing. And I think I've seen a lot of people say that basically some of the scenes are just underpopulated, like the Rome car chases, barely anybody else on the street. You've got the CNS building towards the end. It's like there's nobody in there, even though it's going live at midnight. The train fight, there's barely anybody on the train, you know? And I kind of see that. It doesn't really bother me, for example, but really, but yeah, I think you could definitely have. So what? Basically, that was a really long-winded way of saying this scene isn't just a car chase; it's got to further the story at the same time. Yeah. So the whole Moneypenny thing, he's discovering the Pale King. Obviously, they're going to use that conversation later. So there's multiple functions for this particular scene, rather than just does he get away or not. Yeah. But I think you're absolutely right in the sense that you could have definitely made it more brutal at the same time. You know, Hinx is this bulldog of a man that just doesn't stop coming. And I feel like he should have definitely rammed him out. He should have totally like rammed into the back of his car and Bond spins out, you know, and all that kind of business. But there wasn't really any of that, was there? No.
I just pictured now, imagine, okay, you know, obviously Zhao had their Jag with all these bombs and everything. If
why are we talking about Zhao?
Sorry, man, sorry. Okay, no, if Hinx's Jag had one thing, like imagine if it had some sort of extendable bumper or rammer or something like that, a bit like, you know, the Aston DB5, the old one had the double thing. If he had something like that and he was just relentless, pushing Bond, trying to slam Bond at every opportunity, every time Bond gets away, suddenly Hinx is there, boom, like exactly like he is in the fight in the train. Every time Bond looks up, Hinx is there, punching him, throwing him. If he'd done exactly the same in the car, I would have been a lot. I mean, I did enjoy the chase because it looks great, but I can just imagine Hinx, and you mentioned his personality there. His personality is go after him and get him and get him and get him. And I can just, you know, if he had that sort of bumper, or even if he didn't, just keep on trying to ram Bond's Aston, I think that would have been really good.
Ramming Bond's Aston, eh?
Yeah, there we go.
Yes. Or at the very least, get the old double barrel gun out and start, you know, maybe at least cause a few dents or try and shoot at the wheels or something, you know. Because what I love about that Quantum chase is that car is absolutely buggered by the end of it, you know. There's a door missing, it's scraped and cut to buggery. And I think that's brilliant. And it feels, that chase feels frantic. It really does. Yeah. Whereas this one doesn't. You know, it is. Yeah. I feel like they could have definitely worked some more angles in on that for sure. So go on, you're gonna say something.
Yeah, well, I think it definitely has its plus points though. I love the sort of almost orchestral sort of choir-like feel when they are sort of doing the drift around the Vatican, and you get that sort of Italian sort of opera almost type vibe going on. I think the score is really, really good in the actual chase, and I do like the scenes when they're sort of going past you know, the classic buildings and all this sort of stuff. I think that's great. I've got a question actually regarding that scene with Moneypenny. Okay, so in fact, I think Golden Voice might have brought this up. So you know, obviously Bond's calling Moneypenny from his phone.
Yeah.
We assume he's calling the phone that he left her as a present,
Yeah.
you know, as a little in the gift box. So one assumes that that's one that only he can call, or that phone can only, you know,
only he knows the number, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So we know later on that Denby has that audio of their conversation. Okay. But if that phone Bond has bought specifically for Moneypenny, so only, you know, presumably it's not being hacked or tracked because he's just bought, he's given it to her because it's a secret phone. How does Denby get that info? Is it the fact that Bond uses his phone in the car and he hacks it that way, or how do you think he gets that conversation?
I would say, I mean, to me, that's not a glaring hole for me. I think the way I look at that is that with the level of surveillance that they're creating or building there, it could be. I mean, at the end of the day, man, it seems like everybody's phones and shit is getting hacked left, right, and centre these days. Yeah. So I feel like it could be something as simple as every phone that's on a government premises is automatically just monitored throughout the fucking phone airwaves or whatever. It's another James Bond radio technical term there. Yeah. So
well, I was thinking the same thing. Like, imagine C obviously knows Moneypenny. He will know where she lives. So it doesn't obviously need to be a home phone. Any signal, mobile signal that's being transmitted to or away from her house is bound to be sort of under surveillance, isn't it? Because obviously it could be important to them. You know, so I'm sure that's obviously why and how they managed to do that.
I feel like, you know, M says he's surprised, isn't he? He's like, you're tracking MI6 agents, and he's like, we listen to everybody. And I feel like there could be the argument that say, well, Bond, surely he'd be clever enough to know that they would do that. But at the same time, perhaps not, in the sense that if some of the technology they have could mean any kind of phone signal that, you know, GPS tracking and all that kind of stuff, any phone signal that takes place on government property or MI6 property or whatever is immediately intercepted and listened to. I don't think that's a big deal, really.
I don't think so. Okay, so let's look at sort of the next part of the chase. So basically, once they go down, jump off that step thing, we mentioned the old Fiat 500 comes out, the old man. I really like this bit. I think it's kind of cute in a way. Yeah. So you get this old man, he's the middle of the night, he's singing his opera, listening to his classic, you know. If he had a pizza on his lap and a glass of wine in his hand, you know, it would be the classic stereotype. But in fact, I would have loved to have seen a pizza on his lap. I don't know why. But anyway, so this old guy, he's like enjoying himself on his way home, and then obviously Bond is like, get out of the way, sort of thing, and then you know, rams the DB10 behind him and then accelerates. I wonder if the guy tried to brake or not, or whether he's just letting Bond take him. But either which way, obviously, the Aston sort of powers it through, and the guy's like, oh, you know, what are you doing, type thing. And then there's that little parking space, like you said, and just sort of nicely deposits the Fiat in thing, knocks the little post and the airbag. And I really like that bit. I think that's a right level of humour. It's very Bond. I think that's very Bond. And it got some really good laughs, I think, in the cinema as well. So that kind of bit I really liked.
Every time I've seen it, as soon as the airbag goes, I've seen it 5 times now. I saw it again on Wednesday this week. And that gets a laugh. So, I think what it is we're just getting... You know, Spectre versus Quantum of Solace have very different feels about them. Quantum is a very cold-blooded revenge movie. Spectre is more of a light-hearted classic Bond. And I feel like classic Bond isn't classic Bond without those kinds of moments, you know? Yeah. In Goldfinger, you get the old lady with the machine gun. Do you know what I mean? That's the little comedic little nod, you know? And, you know, so what? It does the job. It's great. So, I don't have any problem with that at all. To me, that feels like a classic Bond moment. I could see that happening with Roger. I could see it happening with Sean. That's true, actually. Yeah. Definitely. So after that, then it's not too long when Bond sort of turns a corner. There's a big sort of truck or whatever it is, or the dumpster or whatever it is in the way, and then they both go down the steps to the sort of embankment by the Tiber. Now, for me, I think aesthetically, this scene is brilliant. You've got the light, you know, obviously the nighttime, the light shining off the river. You've got the embankment sort of lit up, and you've got these 2 awesome cars just like burning it down the sort of embankment. I really like that sort of as a location. Did you enjoy this bit? What did you think? I think it's brilliant. It's mental that Rome hasn't been used in a Bond film before now. Like, it's one of those things that is just prime time Bond location.
Yeah.
And the fact
it's
that
like Monica Bellucci, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah, same sort of thing, I suppose. But in the sense that, 24 movies in, and that's the first time that city's featured, is just mind blowing, really. But yeah, I think it's great. I think there's I enjoy. Well, there's some odd things about this. Well, one odd thing, but basically, I like how they're bombing it along. There's sort of all those bricks and debris, and they kind of come up on the side, and they're kind of racing along like that, which is really cool, nice little touch. And then, obviously we get the exhaust thing, which is, again, that's brilliant. A throwback, obviously, right back to the DB5 in Goldfinger. Instead of a smoke screen or oil slick this time, you get, flames. So how did you feel about that as a gadget? Do you think that works?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I love the bit where they both go up onto the slope, because it reminded me of the old school sort of Brooklands racetrack where they used to do land speed records in this old track in Britain, and it was like this slope track.
Right.
And so as they were on it, that's exactly what it reminded me of. So it had a bit of a classic feel to it, and obviously they're bombing along, and I like the way that they're sort of leaning, to counteract the weight of the the angle sort of thing, which is quite cool. And then obviously they come back down. Yeah, the exhaust thing is brilliant, because obviously he's tried 2 things, they haven't worked. He's got 2 left, tries the exhaust, and again, like, just seeing these massive sort of flames coming up and devouring the Hinx's Jag is brilliant. And Hinx, obviously, you can't quite see, you can see he's like got his arm up.
Yeah.
And then Bond obviously uses that distraction to sort of speed away a little bit. And I really like that.
Do you think he should have gone up on 2 wheels at some point as a little throwback to Diamonds?
Well, that's a good point, actually. I mean, because he went through 1 or 2 really tight streets, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, the bit where they jump off that sort of ledge bit and he hits the roof of the car?
Yeah.
If they had been some sort of, I don't know. I mean, it's a bit, if you've got, I don't know, some sort of ramp or something, it's a bit too easy, isn't it? But if he had come down and then hit that and kind of went through a park, beside a parked car or something, that might have worked. But I think we'll probably see that again in a future Bond at some point. I'm sure.
Probably. So coming up to the climax of the chase, he's like, obviously he's heading straight for the kind of the end of that pathway, and it's all going to end badly, kind of thing. Now, I had a little something where some utter bellend spoiled this for me, because on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, he posted something which I thought was a spoiler. I can't remember exactly what it was he posted now, and I responded saying, "Hey, that better not be a spoiler." Like, that's all I said, kind of thing. Yeah. And then he wrote back, writing this huge long spiel, which I stopped reading immediately, but must have just been basically every spoiler in the film.
Yeah.
And the first, as I read, I was expecting him to say, "Oh, I was only joking, it's not really a spoiler," or something like that. And the very first thing I read was, the Aston Martin DB10 has an ejector seat, but it's in the driver's seat this time instead of the passenger. And then as soon as I read that, I realised what was happening. So it blocked him immediately. So whoever you are on YouTube, you are a right fucking bellend, and don't ever do that again. Anyway, so I knew that was coming. But what I really liked is the execution of it. I loved the execution of this. So presses the button, roof comes off, straps come around and get him on the seat and all that kind of stuff. And I love the fact they could have overplayed it so much, right? Because my fear would have been that he'd have shot up into the air, big Union Jack parachute comes out, big wide shot, da-na, 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 and he'd have, like, do you know what I mean? Sailed around, and it would have been like Die Another Day or something. I love the fact that it is so understated and underplayed. I think it's perfect in the way he shoots up, bang, the car launches off into the river, and then the next thing you see is just that shot kind of panning along and just his feet coming into shot and landing. And it's almost like it's just sort of hinted at. All you see is just like the sort of billowing parachute sort of drop down behind him. You don't even get a good look at the parachute. It's just so... And he just taps the button, off it goes. He's like, "Good evening," and he struts off.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember actually going in the cinema at the Albert Hall going, "Oh, nice," when that happened, because I loved it so much. What did you think about that?
Yeah, brilliant. I absolutely thought it was amazing. I love the fact that Bond doesn't quite know what's going to happen. Obviously, he doesn't know, but he flicks the air, like you said, the roof, the straps come on, and he suddenly twigs. You can see he's a bit like, oh, what's this? As the straps come on, and then he's like, oh, okay. And obviously nothing happens initially, so he's like, well, it's bound to be in the classic place. Flicks the gear stick, and there it is. So I mean, that bit's great. I love the fact, like you said, you don't see it. All you see is the legs and a brilliant payoff as well, which I think is great. And also, I think it's better for Hinx. So Hinx gets out the car, his Jag's still smoking and fire everywhere, and he watches the DB10 sink.
Yeah.
Now, do you think, because he doesn't look up, he doesn't think, oh, is that Bond up there? He doesn't do any of that. So do you think he thinks Bond is still in the DB10 and he's drowned?
I think so, yeah, because I think the exhaust thing serves as a distraction. So you can't see through the flames, can't see through the smoke. And at that point, he ejects out. So in all likelihood, he wouldn't have seen the ejection. All he's going to see is the car ramp up and end up in the river. So I would assume he would think Bond's dead at that point, yeah.
No, here's a question. Who was the canny person who managed to take a photo of the DB10 splashing into the Tiber?
Yeah, that's a good point. But then I suppose if you're strutting along the Tiber late at night and you see these cars come bombing along and all these flames, you'd be like, whoa, get your phone out, and you'd be filming the whole thing, wouldn't you? So I don't think that's too much of a stretch. But,
oh, no, not at all. Yeah. But I would have been if I was there.
Yeah, without doubt. So yeah, I wonder if that car's still sitting down at the bottom of the Tiber. We should go
fish it out.
Yeah, go and get our scuba gear on and go and have a look at it. Yeah, but there we go. So to round up today's discussion, then, what do you think of this chase? Do you think it's an all-time classic chase? Do you think it's a functional chase that does the job? Do you think it's a bad chase? How do you think it measures up to the previous classic Bond chases? Talk to me, Chris. Okay.
So for me personally, like I mentioned, if it had a bit more sort of danger to it, if there was a bit more contact, if Hinx his purpose was to ram Bond off the road and he kept on shunting him and like trying to knock the DB10 for 6, for me, it would be up 2 or 3 levels to what it is. I think it's not comparable to Quantum. I think Quantum is a level above it just for the sheer intensity. I think it's more along the lines of the DB5 and the Lotus in terms of, you know, you see some classic stuff happening, you see some gadgets happening, you see a bit of humour, you know, it's more along those sort of lines. I don't think it'd ever have the status of those cars, obviously, because they're too classic, but also they had a lot more going on for them. But I think it had just the right amount of gadgetry for this film, because they're slowly bringing stuff back in. They can't go from, oh, we don't do that anymore with an exploding pen to bring in a car that flies or
we don't do exploding pens anymore, but you can have this exploding watch if you like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think they hit the right level in terms of the amount of gadgetry that it had. For me, I definitely found it entertaining. I also thought it was interesting with the whole money-penny conversation, and I enjoyed the fear, and I enjoyed the drifting. I love the drifting by the Vatican and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the exhaust fire and the payoff at the end is fantastic. So I definitely say it's a worthy car chase to be in there. I just would have liked a little bit more danger in it, for me.
Yes, I would say out of the recent crop of films, I would say the Quantum car chase is the most memorable because it's just so frantic, and there's just some stuff in there that I'm like, man, that the way that car spins out over that cliff edge is just amazing. And just how when they're in that tunnel all tight and you've got all those cars coming up and the doors ripped off and all that kind of business, that pre-title sequence is a banger, man. That car chase is great. I love it. And like I said, this one is a lighter car chase. It's got more to do than that one. That one is just a burst of action. It's Bond getting from A to B and nothing more. This one, there's some story that's got to happen, some plot development that again gets used later on with Denby and M. So there's a lot more to actually get through. But I agree with you totally. There could have been some more sort of jeopardy. Some Bond should have been a bit more under pressure than he was, because even when Hinx catches up to him, pulls alongside, he doesn't fucking do anything. He just waits.
No.
So yeah, there could have been more. What I would compare this chase to, I would say, in terms of tone, even though it's a completely different location, obviously, is the Living Daylights chase with 3 optional extras installed, shooting through the truck, the roadblock, you know, cutting through the ice. There's just that level of sort of like, for example, with that chase, that's not a hard, gritty chase in daylights, is it? You know, when he's got the lasers, he chops the car in half, or chops the top layer of the car off, and then he's on the ice lake and cuts the big hole and they sink. That is like a fantastical car chase in Living Daylights, and I would sort of lump this car chase in with that tone of car chase, or even the Tomorrow Never Dies one, maybe in the car park. You know, that kind of style of chase, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think it's. Yeah, I think for me, it's a decent chase. I feel like it could have been a bit more frantic. There could have been more to it. But I really do love that payoff. The way they executed that ejector seat, man, that's pleased me a lot. I'm very pleased with that. Yeah, completely.
Excellent. There is another question regarding, quite a few people have said this now. Surprisingly, well, maybe not surprising, but quite a few people have said that when we see Moneypenny and there's a fella in bed, a lot of people think that's Denby, or at least have asked if that's Denby.
I don't know where they would get that from. Like, there's not enough of him to make that assumption. It's a dude with dark hair. Yeah, so you never see his face. He doesn't even sound like Denby. So I don't know why. But you're right, though. A lot of people have said that, so there must be something in it. But for me, that was never even a thing.
No, I don't think it was either. But there we are. But yeah, so overall, great, entertaining car chase, and I think it was good to see some gadgetry back, which is great, and good to see Hinx as well. Like, for instance, compare it to the Die Another Day chase. I would prefer this one. No, I would prefer this one, is what I said.
Oh, good. Thank God for that. Yeah, I suppose. Oh, right. Yeah, I suppose. I
would definitely prefer this one.
Yeah, actually. Me too. Absolutely, on every level. Now, what's funny about this is, isn't it funny how this film and this car chase particularly, it's all about that DB10, isn't it? Everywhere you look, it's this DB10 is a special car made specifically for this film, and there's only 10 ever made, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Yet Jaguar, or Jaguar if you're British, have done exactly the same thing, served up a concept car. Nobody's talking about the Jaguar at all, are they? It's not even being mentioned.
There's a funny thing about that, is that when they were given, obviously that's a prototype as well. That's not going to, well, at least at the moment, it's not going to go on market. But apparently it was too powerful. They had to undercharge the Jag because it was literally too powerful.
Really?
It was too fast, and it was, in terms of sort of cornering and stuff, it was literally over the top in terms of the amount of power output that it had. So that's pretty interesting.
Goodness me. Yeah.
I like the colour as well. I do like the sort of burnt orange colour. I think it's quite a cool colour. It's very burnt orange now.
Very burnt indeed, yeah. So I guess that about rounds out today's episode. The Rome car chase in the bag. Let us know what you think. Do you think it's an all-time classic chase? Do you really like it? Do you not like it at all? Do you think the levels of humour were just right? Did you think the levels of humour were rubbish? Let us know. Get involved in the discussion over on jamesbondradio.com, in the comments section, or on Facebook, or on Twitter. Just get involved. Tell us what you think. Lovely stuff. So, are we going to be back tomorrow, Chris?
Yeah, I think we might as well.
Yeah? All right. Let's come back tomorrow. We'll do another episode. See how we feel after that. Lovely.
All right. Sounds good.
Good stuff. Make sure you come and do all that stuff. If you don't already, come follow us on Facebook. Come and follow us on Twitter and all that kind of business. And it would be lovely if you could leave us a lovely glowing 5-star review on iTunes if you feel we deserve it, because that helps us a lot. Until tomorrow.
It helps us rank higher and gain more listeners.
It does, Chris. Well done. Yes. Yay. Somebody's had an arc during this episode. He's learned something. Brilliant. All right. We will be back tomorrow. Until then, I've been Tom Sears.
I've been Chris Wright.
And JBR will return in the morning with another dose of loveliness in your ear rolls. We'll see you then.
It's going to be good. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.